Hello, everybody. We will be starting the webinar shortly. In the meanwhile, as you are joining, why don't you just, there is a Mentimeter screen on the, which is visible to you. Why don't you just type in your city, the city you're calling in from, and put it here. So there is a QR code on the right top. You have to just scan the QR code and just type in your city you are calling in from. Hello, everybody. As you are coming in, we are the screen of the Mentimeter is visible. Please scan the QR code and just type in the city you are calling in from, so that we are aware as to where you are from. And we are seeing the cities which are coming in are the GBS centers of the world. Thank you, everybody, and welcome once again. Welcome to the new participants who are first time joining the webinar on change management for GBS. And also welcome back to all the participants who have been a part of our episode 1, which was there for the same topic, where we started on our journey on change management with GBS. I am Sudeshna, and I'm the CEO of Marg Business Transformation. This webinar is hosted by Marg and Silfra, the partners of Prosci Inc. Prosci are the world leaders in change management. They have the methodology of doing a structured methodology of doing change based on the ADKAR model. So, having talked about a little bit of change management, and as a few of you are also joining in, and I do not want the crux of the discussion to be missed in any way, why don't you share with us in our next poll as to, as to which are you trained or certified in? How many of you are trained or certified in the ProSci methodology? So again, the same thing, just scan the QR code and give us your answers. So that's quite an equal mix of people who are aware or trained in the ProSci methodology and who are new to the methodology as well. Just as we spoke some time ago, that this is a series. This is a webinar series where the first webinar was where our GBS clients spoke on how they have embraced change management in their organizations. Particularly, we had Carolina from Philip Morris in Poland and Gurmeet Shran from Diageo in India talking about how leaders, managers, and employees in their organization are adopting change management as a practice. In today's webinar, which is the part 2 of the series, we dive deep into finding out how do we deliver and execute the changes. We will go very deep into this topic. When we talk about GBS, whichever name we call it, shared service, GBS, or GCC, And whenever I have interacted with any of them, any of the members, and asked them a question as to when do you want this, or whenever I have used the question with a when, their answer has always been yesterday. So speed is something which is an essence of this sector. So they work with immense, the speed is a must for them, which we have seen. But they like to keep things simple, but they have sharp eyes on the results with backed by great metrics. So now I take immense pleasure in introducing our speakers of today, Krish from India and Christoph from Poland. Both Krish and Christoph are Prosci certified advanced instructors, having trained and certified more than 1,000 participants by now. They are there wherever change management is. We have seen them speaking on the dais wherever metrics and change management is concerned, or AI and change management. We have seen them speaking in various seminars in the recent past. But GBS is very close to their heart. Considering the locations they hail from, GBS forms a very important sector in those locations, and they have extensive experience in working closely in projects, in change projects in particular, applying Prosci methodology in doing change with GBS. With that, I just hand over the mic to both of them as telling us a little about this topic and why this topic is close to their heart of their broad thoughts on change management and GBS. Christoph, you can start.
Thank you very much, Sudeshna. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, if there is afternoon for anyone. Thank you for inviting me for this webinar. In fact, Poland is one of the top 3 or top 5 locations for shared service centers for GBSs. That's one of the reasons why we have interaction with those companies. Having been working in strategy implementation, project management, and change management for something like 25 years, I met some of them on the stage when they were still part of their parent organizations. Then they were becoming Center of Excellence, shared services, and GBSs. And in fact, more and more are transforming towards GBSs now, serving also non-geographical clients, because it was the tendency to stick to geography, stick to time zone. But now with technology, with AI, with more digitization, it is possible to offer services, more specialized services for customers from different time zones. So in my change management practice as consultant on one hand, on the other hand, as instructor of change management, I have been meeting individuals and companies from this industry. So on one hand, this is like 3% of our GDP, and it's really big. It's growing, maybe not dynamically as in India, for example, but still it is growing sector. It is providing plenty of jobs. But on the other hand, it is also transforming quickly. And I think challenge number 1 now is to stay relevant for GBSs, to stay competitive, to use technology. So let me not extend this topic too much at this stage, but it all is about changes, which means that it's not enough to have new technology. It's not enough to have SAP for HANA or AI idea, or to have well elaborated and well designed and grown lean competency center or digital implementation center or continuous improvement center. But it's about putting those skills and those tools together to increase adoption usage of new solutions. Because in fact, for GBS effectiveness and success, adoption usage is the key, which means we spend money investing in technology, investing in processes, and it pays back. So that's the thing. So that's why change management, which is supporting adoption and usage of new technologies and new solutions, is so important topic for GBSs. And of course, in the background, we can talk about various business strategies. We can talk about implementing them through digitization, through managing effectiveness, through managing talents and attracting talents, through implementation of more and more AI-based solutions, through process optimization. But still, it's not about only installing the solution, but it's also about making it used by employees and making it adopted and used. And here is the connection point between what we call organizational change management or change management and the strategy of GBS. And this is the justification why GBS may invest, should invest, and in fact must invest in this skill. That's my intro. I hope it's enough to start the conversation, but still, of course, we're gonna discuss more about what is the way of GBS to do it, but I will leave it for later.
Thanks, Christoph. Christoph, that was amazing, especially the last part. I could almost visualize a Venn diagram, right, between GBS strategy and where it wants to go and change management, the enterprise change management storyline, and I could feel the circles moving in together. Thank you for that. Sudesh, now going back to what you asked of us, my own connection to GBS is a little more personal too, just like Christoph. My most recent role in my non-Prosci consulting persona was that of a leader in the GBS world, and I went through a transformation process myself of bringing in non-GBS perspectives into GBS and then changing myself and looking at things differently. For me, the beautiful thing about GBS is it's the one industry where we take work and package it. So I'm in location X and I'm taking the work, I'm lifting it. People were doing it. They had not viewed it as an independent part of anything. We are slicing maybe a process out of that person's work, of the team's work, lifting it, putting a couple of layers, protective layers of processes and KPIs and metrics, building that whole story into level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, connecting it with the rest of the organization's business processes, and shifting it to a new location. New location, new team, I'm shifting it elsewhere, right? And here's the beauty. When it shifted, it's not always necessary that vendor relations or customer relations shifted, which means the shift is invisible to everyone outside the org. Within the org, it's happened, which means this team has to deliver those results with the understanding of that team. It gets messy, it gets complicated very quickly, right? How does this team now gather that business acumen, that business savvy? That is the reason why that work was defined the way it was, the process was defined the way it was, right? And then comes the duality. Now, when I brought it in over here, I'm very, very clear. I tell the team, don't mess with the process. Listen to the SMEs, stick to the procedures that you have and run with it. And once they get used to it, I tell them, all right, brilliant. Now give me more. Give me more value. To give me more value, they need more business acumen and exposure. But giving them exposure and business acumen raises all kinds of cultural issues, all kinds of process issues, role issues. You walk into complexity very quickly in the GBS space. It's not bad complexity, it's a very healthy complexity, but it makes GBS run a little differently. So that fascinates me, absolutely fascinates me. And as Christoph said, in this world, the change management is traditionally viewed as the transition part of it. Transitions occur between the larger the mothership as well as the GBS, and as well as the GBS and other GBS centers, other SSC centers. It's never just one unit, right? And different units are going to be in different levels of their growth or different contributions to the organization. So transitions are occurring sideways, they are occurring vertically. Transition management is a rich place where change management often gets applied. But therein lies the beauty again. You have individual change leaders, transition leaders slowly developing. The organization gets exposed to change management, says, yes, brilliant. And then we hand it over to teams that are driving process excellence, who are trying to improve the way the organization works. And then quickly it gets complicated because the organization says, give me a process, give me a way of doing it, give me a standardized way of doing it, and we run a little differently. So again, all that is the fascinating part. With all this said, 2 or 3 thoughts what makes change management different in GBS. If you're a change manager, if you're a practitioner in the GBS world, you have to speak many languages. I don't mean languages in terms of regional languages, but languages in terms of business languages. You have to talk to each tower, each silo in that language they belong. You have to talk the process language, you have to talk the KPI language, you have to talk the results language. And that's one kind of language. You also have to talk the Six Sigma language or project management language, whatever your organization speaks. So you got to be multilingual. You have to be good at building relations. Eventually, leaders in GBS world want people who can connect across the silos and not just give me the silo value. So those are two themes that I'll probably come back to again. But let me now shut up and hand the mic off to you.
Before we move on, I would like to comment and can't stop myself from commenting on what you mentioned, Krish, because in fact, this is the moment when I meet several individuals coming to either to our certification classes or coming to us as a consulting company or just friends talking to me and asking, there is some job in change management in what proves to be GBS or what is GBS. Is it worth joining? Is it a good opportunity? Or people are saying, I'm inside a company and I'm being offered a job like this. Should I take it? Or they come to classes and they say, I have been sent it here. I don't know what are the perspectives. And generally, in many cases like this, I see great people careers that grow on delivering changes successfully. And of course, in many cases, people don't have the job title of change practitioner or change manager. They are business leaders, they are lean leaders, they are continuous improvement leaders, they are digital champions, they are project managers, yet still they are delivering changes. And by helping them to build this muscle, we can also accelerate individual careers. And this is what personally fascinates me, apart from supporting GBS organizations. So I couldn't stop from this comment. Thank you. And over to you, Suleshna. Yes, please.
Suleshna,
You are on mute.
Thank you. And that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
It's a part of communication in change too.
Yeah, we should learn it quickly. And yeah, thank you. And one of you coming from an ops perspective and the other from a project perspective, that was a good way to start off. And before I ask the next question, I will just go to another poll and just see if from our audience, another question for you. What type of changes are you currently working on? There is a QR code on the right top. You can use the QR code on the right top and get into the Mentimeter, and the question will be visible to you. I'm giving it another minute and keeping it on screen while I go to the next question of what does GBS want in the change execution? If we ask that what does GBS exactly want in change execution, and considering the kind of changes coming up on screen, which they are currently working on, how would you kind of take that? Yeah, Christoph.
I'm not surprised with dominant results of process improvement, although if in the air there is more and more discussion about AI, but I believe this is the reality. We still have a lot to catch up with in our GBS organizations, in our shared service centers, centers of excellence. So from my experience and my interaction, in fact, AI becomes the topic for executives, but still topics for people inside the organization are most about effectiveness, are most about optimization. So looks like those types of projects and all that are indicated here, including ERPs, they require change component, because it's all like you said, Krish, even if you pack it well, even if you define it all well, in every environment, in every country, with every team setup, it will work a little bit differently. So this is one thing. The second thing is that GBSs are constantly evolving. So on one hand, we are implementing some solutions. On the other hand, environment is changing and requirements are changing. And there are also some mergers. There are also some acquisitions on the way. So looks like many things are changing at the same time. And in fact, capability to manage those changes, capability to understand what is happening, this is something that is really becoming one of the core competencies now, and then being able to manage it on enterprise level and being able somehow to support those changes that are crucial for the organization before supporting other. So prioritization for change management, it also becomes an issue, especially or challenge, especially that there is also an issue of resources. And I think in change management, we are constantly facing the issue of resources, the scarcity of resources, not only in terms of FTE number, but in terms of organizations' openness for investing in this competency, but also, to be honest, in quality of this competency. Not everyone who used to be a good project manager will immediately become a good and effective change practitioner. Not everyone who is an effective change practitioner will immediately be effective in complex GBS organization. Generally, we'll develop this topic in the next round, I guess. But generally, we face a lot of complexities here in the business that you mentioned, Krish, that are translated onto the complexities on how to support it from change management perspective, taking into account scarcity of resources, taking into account interdependencies between changes. So I would say if somebody loves complexity, ambiguity, and level master in change management, there is no better way than to go to GBS and to try to develop this competency there and to try to support effectively internally your clients. So I'm not surprised on the setup of the projects, but still behind those projects, behind those types of digital SAP, especially, or ERP, AI, and process improvements, there is a lot of complexity that it's amazing playground for change practitioners, and that requires a lot of skills that are really, when you have them, I would say it increases employability incredibly. And in today's time, when we talk a lot about what AI can take from us or take away, I think this is one of the jobs that will be needed for a long, long time. So just a side comment, maybe. Thank you very much.
Krish.
Thanks, Christoph. Made sense. So I too was struck by the same thing that struck Christoph, that process changes are the big chunk. And perhaps what is unsaid in that slide, we should think of all those changes are happening simultaneously. It's not, I'm doing either process change or AI or ERP, et cetera, et cetera. It's happening at the same time, right? And that's, again, beauty, as Christoph said, of the way GBS manages these changes parallelly. And in that context, I would guess the GBS way, or what GBS wants of such change, is keep it simple enough for me to measure, keep it complex enough for you to do it, crudely. So there is an acknowledgement that change management is difficult. They're expecting someone who comes in wearing a change management hat to start executing. They would prefer not being mentored through it, right? Don't show me how it's done, do it. I will watch, I'll learn, right? But I need to be able to understand what you're doing enough for me to measure it, for me to give you feedback, for me to be able to track progress. So that's one consideration. The second consideration is you need to manage relationships, meaning I cannot mother hen you through the process. You are going to speak across my silo, right, from top to bottom, right? And I'm assuming you have the maturity, the business savvy, the organizational savvy to talk at any level of my silo. And sometimes we're going to be very senior, very tenured individuals. You need to bring them on board. That's what you do. So that's the second expectation from a change manager in the GBS context. You are able to manage relationships really, really well. The third part is I think of all the industries, I find GBS being more sensible about we're not chasing perfection, we're chasing progress, right? The concept of CI and so on and so forth is something that GBS world gets very, very well. But they would like you again to give me some roadmap. Tell me what is the evolution over here? How has the project got better? How have you and I got better? How has the org got better? Tell me how I can see it. It's slightly different from what I said earlier. They need measurement to tell me whether you're doing a good job and I'm doing a good job. But this is more about the project part of it, the org part of it, the capability part that Christoph talked about. How do I build this as a capability? I think these are things that GBS loves to see. There's another layer over here. GBS is, I hesitate to use the word, but I wouldn't say schizophrenic, but they do tend to wear two hats at the same time. They wear the hat of my silo. My silo is my silo, and everything I do is identified with my silo. But I also think horizontally, because once I nail a best practice, I want to copy paste, because copy pasting is resource efficient. Again, like Christoph said, resources are a big thing, right? So it's resource efficient. How do I copy paste this? How do I make it a common thread, right? And there are, I guess in this conversation, we'll probably go down into that. There are varied models to do it. Sometimes it can be a centralized team that is guiding the whole application. Sometimes it can be centralized team plus adherents, plus practitioners in different groups. Centralized team is mentoring the rest of the team. So there are multiple ways to get that done. But GBS likes that thought process, likes the process, right? So long as it's frugal on resource, so long as I don't mess around with my budgets, I think we can do that. So those are I think, the big things from a GBS perspective, which are frankly non-negotiable. For example, if you do not have the maturity to manage relationships across without adult supervision, it's going to be difficult to be a good change manager in the GBS world. Did that make sense, Sudeshna?
Yeah, it did. But what I'm hearing from both of you is the managing of the resource part in a very efficient way, the measurement part and relationship. So would you like to bring in an element of anything that in their quest of like what they want of change, what do you think of change leadership itself? What is your view of change leadership itself in GBS?
Well, let me maybe start because I think I took very interesting lesson from one of the top management teams of one of the top American tech companies. This is on every news almost, and we use their products. It's not Microsoft, let me say, but this is the company that everybody admires, or many people admire. And then they said, in fact, we are just great engineers who have the name leaders on our foreheads, but we are still engineers. And even in such company, there is still this legacy from the past that they build it. And when I transfer this to GBS experience, we can say that GBSs very often come from very challenging, very demanding environment of being a cost center, very brutally managed by KPIs. And then the mentality still is there of low cost need and competitiveness by the costs. At the same time, of course, in GBS, you need to create mentality of high quality service and high value added service and globally available service, and also service which is modern, which is supported by the best technology. So I think, again, if I can refer to the schizophreny that you mentioned, Chris, for me, this is also a part of bipolar view still that leaders have, because it's difficult to forget about the past when we needed to manage costs first, secondly, manage costs, and thirdly, manage costs. And then to enter into the mindset of being a global center of great services, very creative and innovative. So it takes cultural change too. So for me, the challenge also working in such environment is that you as a change practitioner need to be aware of this and need to be able to talk to business leaders who are digit-driven, number-driven, who understand business language perfectly, very well, and first and foremost, but at the same time have high expectations on the pace of changes, have high expectation of effectiveness of those changes, clarity of progress tracking, and also results delivered. So I think this culture, this leadership culture, gives us and raises the bar high for change practitioners, because it tells us, deliver me business results. And we know what it means in change management language. We know it's about adoption, it's about usage, but also we cannot focus that much then in the conversation about that we are supporting the people side. And more, I think the challenge for change practitioners is that we need to be more project managers or program managers in the change environment and in change management. We need to manage very well the complexity, the tasks, the project type of thing, and we need to integrate our schedules and our milestones, like the people milestones, with project milestones, so that it's visible for business leaders who extremely talk business language, even more in other industries, I would say, it's even more evident. So when we are up to this level of conversation, this is great partnership. If we are not there yet, it could be challenging. So I believe that that's the complexity, and that's the whole complex around the leadership that is in GBS currently. And also, I would say, what I notice is that leaders are also very technology savvy and interested in new solutions, because they see that it can elevate organization to another level. So I think for us, another challenge is that we need to really understand well what the AI landscape brings, what cultural changes it requires. And generally, when we look at AI implementation and first, let's say, first experience with this, it looks like to satisfy this interest of leaders in GBS with the technology, we also need to be mindful that it changes culture, that it requires change of mindset of people, that it requires deeper collaboration. So I think this is another challenge that it brings with the interest of leaders with technology. We need to bring the right experiences about implementing this technology, while those experiences have already been created, because AI is very fresh thing. And for example, one of the things is that you launch something with AI solutions that is never-ending story, and you don't know the end state. So this is something new, how to manage the situation in the company when you don't know the end state. The only thing you know is that can go further and further and further. So still we need to become strong business partners and partners for business discussion with GBS leaders. So for me, these are those aspects that we need to look at. So it means that change management needs to be very much business oriented, and we need to find smart and simple ways of delivering values, and delivering values or value in a way that is understandable by our executives, our stakeholders, with whatever they have as the legacy in their mind.
Agreed, Christoph. It is a tough gig. It's a tough gig for the practitioner. It's a tough gig for the change leader. It's a tough gig for the practitioner then to coach the change leader to make all this happen. So it's any which ways, it's either tough or it's exciting or it's both. My own thoughts on what does it take to be a leader of change in the GBS world in this kind of an environment. I don't intend to sound harsh, but this is my own reading. I think leaders in the GBS world are not necessarily very good at building a capability. Invariably, they're very good at hiring a capability and then scaling a capability. But building a capability from scratch is not something that they are automatically good at. So that's step number one, right? As a leader, what does it mean to have a capability? Let's not talk about change capability. Maybe it's data capability. Maybe it's analytical capability, right? Pick your phrase. But how do you build a capability? What makes it stick? And that's probably the first stage that a leader needs to reflect and probably accept the coaching that a change practitioner could give on what does it take for you. It's going to take some element of your calendar time. It's going to take some element of your credibility. It's going to take some element of your authenticity. You're going to bring all that to the table in order to bring that capability. All three. Calendar time is going to be important, right? So that's one comment, that change leaders need to consider that building a capability or having good change management in a project takes their effort. The second comment I would make is the GBS world is, I think you said this in the introduction, Sudeshna, that they all want it yesterday, right? It's an environment where they want it yesterday. Even if they don't want it yesterday, the headquarters, markets want it yesterday. Change leaders need to be good at storytelling. They need to be good at storytelling to the change team, to give the change team some space for them to get the job done and help them see why it is so difficult. The change team is going to go to the change leader and say, it looks like your team only wants communication. It looks like they want only training. And this change leader needs to help them see, no, it looks like that's where they are suffering right now. That's where they're struggling right now. Hence, they wanted to fix it. But they are willing to go the next mile once you show them this. But in the meanwhile, they also need to go and talk to HO. They can't just use words with HO. With headquarters, you need to demonstrate. You need to give them a couple of good projects, which means that change leader, as a part of storytelling, also has to pick the right projects that will flesh out their story. It's not just about low-hanging fruit. Right now, again, as Christoph pointed out, the world is looking at GBS, SSCs as these centers to take a lead in how the practice of technology can make a difference to the organization. The practice of technology, not technology per se. Technology, customer innovation, all that is already happening all through the org. But the practice of technology, large-scale practice of technology happens in the SSCs, happens in the GBS, right? And the rest of the organization is waiting to see, show me the results. And that's also a part of storytelling, choosing the right projects to apply this change management to. And incidentally, that's not always the biggest, hottest fire that's burning. So that's my second comment. Third comment, and I've struggled with this as a leader. Your ability as a change leader to bring your own direct reports along. Somehow leaders in their path to becoming a leader forget to be good managers. And it's important that you as a change leader are able to make sure that you and your own management team, your own staff are speaking with the same degree of passion on be it change management or be it analytics or be it X or Y or Z, whatever you're pitching, whatever you're saying to the HO, whatever you're saying to your own team over here, whatever you're saying to the change team or project team, they're consistent. Because often what we see from outside in is the passion quickly dies down as you go down the operational levels of a team. The lower down you go, they have more moments of truth. The junior most members of your team are talking with customers or vendors or talking outside the organization way more frequently than you are. You need to make sure that that's one priority that you're setting up, right? So that's probably the third thing I would say. In this environment, to be a good change leader, you need to make sure you and your own org are aligned. In which case, then your messaging, be it your HO, be it the rest of the world, is consistent. It's even if you're missing from the meeting, the same thing is said. Between us, did we kind of get close to what you wanted, Sudeshna?
If I may just add one thing, yes, because I think, Chris, you mentioned also this capability building. So out of this, we need to be aware that there is a lot of capability in various areas that have been used for process optimization already, for digitization. So continuous improvement skills, including Six Sigma and lean management, various digital skills. And I think to be a good leader in this environment, we need also to be able to use those capabilities in an effective way, not build only our change management capability without strong connection and strong link to what has been already in the organization. So this is also another level of complexity that we need to face and another level of leadership that we need to go on to be able to link all the existing capabilities and to add something constructive to them, to take advantage of them instead of competing and thinking like we are another book on the shelf.
I think this question, with the answers to this question, sort of touched upon the kind of the challenges they will have or what stops them from getting a smooth change execution. So that would be the next question. So before that, again, I just put it to the poll and just share it the poll screen again. as to you mentioned now the kind of changes you all are going through, the audience I'm talking to. So what challenges are you facing? Which you feel will hinder your change success? Okay, what would stop you from getting there? So if you can mention a few of your challenges. And to Christoph and Krish, the question is, what stops them from getting change success?
And in this case, I kindly would pass the floor first to you, Krish. I'm really interested in your insider experience.
Few thoughts, Christoph, and again, please keep me honest over here. There are a bunch of personal challenges. There are a bunch of role and organizational challenges. I think one personal challenge that I often face is be it change leaders or change practitioners, not very good at building their own brand, building their own identity, building their own role definition. GBS is a world where your title role is a bundle. You're responsible for a variety of things in a variety of projects in a variety of contexts. And the way to parse that basically is what your role designation says, and the kind of meetings you attend in the week are all weirdly different, right? You're called into every meeting that you can possibly be called into. So establishing your identity, establishing your role, establishing your brand are all important. And I find this being one reason why change success struggles. The change leader is also wearing a project manager hat sometimes. The change leader is also wearing a change manager hat sometimes. And sometimes the rest of the organization says, well, apparently you're doing all the hard work. You keep doing it and you give us a speech every once in a while and walk away. So calling out your identity, calling out other people's identity, practicing the RACI chart, practicing your respective roles is one key element. Resources, we've talked about it quite a lot. I think GBS and any other resource-starved world is definitely a world where he says, show me the results and then I'll give you the money, right? Which is a bit of a chicken or egg scenario, right? I can't show you the money and the scale till you give me some money. So we kind of run around that. So that's the second problem. The third problem is people are busy. People are insanely busy, which means I can often touch people with a change that's coming only at the last minute, which invites a lot of frustration. Right? The second comment is because people are busy, we struggle to bring them into confidence earlier on too. Many of the changes we touch are sensitive in the GBS world. They are about transitions, they're about roles moving, roles changing, roles getting smaller, bigger, and so on and so forth. So those are issues, right? The last comment I would probably make is in all this, in the nicest way possible, for every one of our value streams, there are participants, there are observers, there are leaders, right? So the observer crowd is observing. They have a lot of opinions about what's going on. They don't have much skin in the game, but they are strong and powerful. So observers need to be managed, of course. There are participants, the people who are doing the hard work, and they have a certain level of invested thought process on what they are doing today and how they like to keep doing it. So that's your participant status. And then there is the leader, the person who's saying, no, let this whole stream go to a different route, right? If I take something like AI, there are many who are wearing a participant hat and they are willing to jump in, but they are a minority. Most of them are still in an observer hat saying, okay, let's see who's going to do what with AI. And once it works, I have a formula for success, let me run it. It's very important for both change leaders and change managers to be able to call out who's wearing which hat. And are we giving the right jobs to the right people? If you give a critical job to someone who's an observer, they're going to play it in a very risk-averse way. If you give a decision-making job to a participant, they're going to say, not now, I'm too busy. So understanding these three hats, these three roles, these three personas people bring to change is also going to be important. This is in addition to all the beautiful stuff that's on the screen, but Christoph, did that help? Sudeshna, did that help?
Yeah. So So let's Christoph say, and then I may ask a few of the ones which has come in.
Yes, building on what you, Krish, mentioned, I think the lack of time and being overwhelmed with things and many priorities is one thing, but also it is like usually change management is onboarded late. So we are generally with having this overwhelming situation, we are late. So generally we start from level minus. And then if you're late with change management, it's very difficult to prove the value. So let me not find the answer. If you want to comment, please just go on.
One thought, Christoph, is oh, that was good reading of body language. That's awesome, Christoph. One thought I have is I find in the GBS world, a lot of people doing change management, but not calling it change management. They're wearing the hat, but what they are probably missing is structure, and what they're missing is support.
Exactly.
Because they don't have structure, they don't have a language in which to ask for help. So they're struggling with the change. They are doing change management, but they don't know how to bring more eyes and heads into it. So they struggle alone, do some magic, and walk away with those small improvements. Sorry.
No, this is great add-on, because I recall conversation I had 2 weeks ago with one of the practitioners. She said, I have to connect after this conversation. She said, I have to connect with my project manager, because in fact, project manager was doing her plan. I was doing my plan, she says, and we interacting very little because we just don't have time. So it's another thing, like not only you are late onboarded, but also you are doing something separately from the project management stream. If it's possible, but yes, it is possible. Then also something here, it's mentioned, like we struggle with accessibility and availability of sponsors. And sometimes also leaders, we talk a little bit about leadership. Leaders consider change practitioners or project practitioners as those who need to deliver changes. In fact, it never works this way to full extent. So this is another challenge, which means we are lacking success factor number one in change. Then another challenge is that in GBS, still we have plenty of people managers who should be the first line of help desk for employees in the change, who are not the best leaders first, but are the best experts first. And in change, we require from them even more people management things, like communication with people about how the change will impact them, guiding people through difficult moments, managing resistance, advocating for the change. And people managers are more topic managers, so they cannot really manage people effectively. Also, another thing is that change management sometimes, I think it's much is expected or too much is expected from change practitioners. They will fix everything and anything that has not been fixed yet, which is not true. Also, sometimes lack of clarity about what success looks like. I see this also this answer here, and I really go for it fully. This is also a challenge that sometimes business leaders don't give clarity about that. And still, of course, it's up to us to get this clarity, but still, this is the place where we are starting from. So not yet going to solutions, but just maybe looking at some challenges. And also, I believe, lack of true capability for change management requires from us very creative approach. And this creativity, which is expected, which is needed, in fact, this is also a challenge, because sometimes you need time to be creative. And when you're overwhelmed with tasks, when you're late, when you're over-expected from things, then it's also sometimes difficult even to find a space for being creative, which is needed. So this is my view from the perspective of practitioner who works inside GBS on some projects, from the perspective of person who talks and who listens to all the complaints and questions and claims.
So in the interest of time, I'm going to go to the section which would be more kind of people are looking forward to, and some questions are coming on that as well. Is that what is your advice? You both have worked with GBS, and change management has been the methodology you all are experts on. So what would you want them to do differently to be successful in change? Both leaders, from a perspective of the leaders or change practitioners, what would they do differently to get change success?
You first.
Me first. So I drop one idea, you drop one idea, Chris. Then we can come back to me as long as we have ideas.
I don't think you all need
Go back
data, you know?
Yeah, just I know, so there's not that you will push us for time. Yes, I know, but still. So I would say first, have some internal capability, but not too much. Because in fact, you have continuous improvement centers of excellence. You have lean centers of excellence. You have project management offices. Without institutionalization, something is not existing in formal GBS environment. So I would suggest create something that would have a name, go somewhere and start from something that is a bit institutionalized, even if this is a little bit against my simplification mind. Because I think if you have name, you are somewhere on the list of people with some names and functions, and you can be recognized, but don't build this capability too much. Start with some concrete thing you can support. So have the umbrella under which you are working so that you're recognized. Use the methodology that will support you, but choose priorities wisely. That would be my first advice, let's say, and first observation about those change management competences, individuals or center of excellence, or even other more elaborated units that are successful. Krish.
Thanks, Christoph. I'm going to take a different angle on this. There are two things we could try and do. We could try and land a project really well. We can try and land change management capability real well, right? So the answers slightly get morphed depending upon what you're trying to get done. The common thought process for both of them is find a sponsor. You got to find a leader who believes in that end being critical for the organization. Not by itself, not because change management is a thing, but because this person says, we are trying to get X and Y and Z stuff done, and if we don't have it, we will fail. We don't have change management, we'll fail. So that they can say about a project, that they can say about the organization, but find a leader, right? The same thing applies if I'm a GCC and I'm saying, hey, I want the HO to give more space to my local leadership. I'm going to say the same thing, right? Is there a leader who finds the lack of local leadership in those conversations a challenge? Go to that leader first, convert them first, let them give you an opportunity to create a POC around it. Let there be a couple of leaders who are your heroes. Let those leaders locally be your example. See, you got two of these guys, I can make more of them. But you got to show, not tell, right? So get yourself that leader who agrees with the pain point, either at the project level or at the capability level. And the nicest way possible, now you have to let the leader co-create the story with you. They might give you a lesser budget than you're asking for, lesser time than you're asking for, lesser resources than you're asking for. But you brought them in as a sponsor, give them the space to then shape how either the change management within the project or change management as a capability is going to take form. Right? That would be mine. Christoph, back to you.
So yes, and then we can building on that, we can go for building the business case, either to go to a sponsor or to work with the sponsor and with the project team to show the benefits from change management. First, to prepare the case for change management, and then to make it working and to prove it. And building on this, you can create some momentum for more interest. So that would be my another advice. And then going back to you, Krish.
Thanks, Christoph. Stacey, you've had all these conversations too, so you can join this merry-go-round with us.
No, I have a very interesting question which has come in, which kind of you all complete first as to, because I think that is the place where everybody is waiting for, as to what do they need to do, like, you know.
Okay, so I'm just going to answer Christoph's and then take a shot at what you just described. So on what Christoph said as a define the right success metrics, define what your end goal is going to be. Don't go for the big bang. Don't go for the largest, coolest project to work on. Look for some small increments. Go to where the organizational energy already is. Like Christoph said, that we already have Six Sigma, we already have Lean, we already have Agile, we already have Safe, we are doing less. Choose where the organization's attention is. And maybe you're in a world where you have multiple organizations and they each have a different place where they're putting, maybe just leadership development, maybe just scaling leaders, right? So pick where the organization's attention is and ask yourself what could be a needle movement there. I say this often, we're used to solving problems. We're all in this call because we're problem solvers. In change management, sometimes you're not solving a problem entirely. You're taking a small step towards the right solution. right? So get comfortable with the fact that you're moving the needle but not solving the problem, and that's perfectly all right. Sudeshna, back to you said you had a more specific question, so should I give you the mic back to you? And
No more for it was one of the points, one of the challenges which came up with. Okay, like I see that frequently in GBS and the setups is they don't stack changes, meaning everything is important always, that it is with that yesterday problem. They don't stack the changes. Do you think that portfolio of changes, the change portfolio being done well, is a thing leaders should do or you think that practically that is not a space they are in?
would you like to go first? I do have a couple of thoughts, but
Please go on, Krish.
so the GBS structure is not very portfolio friendly. It's not very portfolio friendly because each team in the GBS world is the smallest unit of smallest but complete unit of GBS. So a team, say, about 30 strong, is handling one entire market, is handling one section of the value stream for the whole market, and that could be for a different process, right? Maybe it's not ITES, maybe it's IT, in which case this particular team is taking care of the development of one app and probably customer facing, right? So you must understand that in the GBS world, you have an aggregation of very many self-organized teams. So in that context, it's not natural for GBS to have a portfolio structure. I'm just calling that out as a fact, right? But with that said, I think having a portfolio mindset at the leadership level is very important. To get to that mindset, I like to say to leaders in GBS, embrace the red, meaning I need leaders in GBS to talk more about how difficult the next change is. If you do not provide a bill upwards to the fact that the last 15,000 changes you've given me are taking up a fair bit of bandwidth, then the leader upstairs doesn't know that this is a complication. But our challenge is whenever we see a KPI that's red, we play with the KPI to make it look amber. Or at least the explanation we give for the red KPI is we're going to take care of it. Don't worry. It's looking like a red, but it's actually an amber. And I'm saying, no, embrace the red. Start talking about the reds. Stop talking about the fact that you're stuck. It's a healthy thing to do. So that's what I would call as a portfolio mindset. I think GBS leaders need to start heading in the direction of calling out a bill, a cost, an organizational cost, an organizational attention cost to every change that's coming. But I acknowledge the fact that the nature of GBS is that thousands of concurrent changes are going to happen. That's part of being in the GBS. You do a lot of tap dancing over here. That makes sense?
You do both, and there is no or.
It's an and world, not an or world. Yep.
Yes. So still, Sudeshna, you mentioned we have questions and not much time to the end. So I think it's happy to see what are the questions.
So this one is, what lessons have been learned from failed implementations and how can change managers help avoid these pitfalls?
Well, you can just recall Prosci research made on 12,000 cases over the last 25 years. But also you can talk about some experiences that we have working with GBSs, and generally they are similar. We start change management late, if ever. There is not sufficient sponsorship. People are resistant. People managers are not involved enough. We don't integrate project and change management. We don't use methodology, rather random actions. And I think we don't have resources for change management. We don't employ resources too. So I think from those lessons learned, we can say that if change manager is reasonably equipped with some tools and methodology, and regardless of which one, I would say, we use Prosci. I love Prosci. I have even ADKAR glasses. For those who know ADKAR model, I can just wear them for a moment. Yes, I look through the perspective of ADKAR at projects, but still there are some other ways. So if we are equipped with some structures that can help us to talk to business leaders in a way that we are understood, talking about the change, this is the best way how we can help, plus those things that we mentioned before. Over to you, Krish, if you want to add something.
I would agree with that. I would wholeheartedly agree with that. I too am Prosci dyed and dust. I mean, full-blooded, blue-blooded Prosci. I think the most common reason I see a completely failed implementation is probably the portfolio part, right? I find the GBS environment is very, very welcoming to change in general. People are quite fine with finding a new way of doing things. So I don't think this happens at the lowest levels of the organization. This happens at the mid and senior levels where they're not thinking about what does this additional change mean to my organization burdens. There, having the structure helps a lot. Having good change management portfolio thinking helps a lot. So yeah, I would agree with Christoph completely on that.
This is on the question of methodology. It's like the Prosci methodology, when we do a certification class, it's quite elaborate. Like, how would you want a GBS, but at the same time, you said that GBS needs things very fast, very simple. And so is Prosci the only methodology, or would there be any recommendations of anything else you all would like to put?
Well, I receive this question from time to time, and honestly, my answer is what works well, and it's maybe against the change management approach itself. We should change and adapt, but as long as something works, I would use it. That's what I do with Prosci. I've been using this for 14 years, so I see like we need to upgrade ourselves. We need to be more skillful. We need to learn from various sources. But for me, the best methodology to integrate with project management approach, with lean, with continuous improvement is ADKAR, is Prosci. So that's why I would say learn whatever you want, whatever is available, use whatever you have already learned. But for me, simply Prosci is something that gives me most of the value in the time I have, usually limited time. So yeah.
I would echo that, Srishant. I think the learning might take a longer time, and that's true for selected individuals, right? We're not saying everyone needs to go through a detailed indoctrination, if you like. That's not what we're trying to do. And as Christoph said, my best example is I can drive in India and I drive very differently. I can drive in the US and I drive very differently, right? But it's the same 10-day learning that I did, right? So once I get the basics of driving right and I develop road sense, I can probably do a good job in wherever I drive. But each case, I adapt myself to whatever is required. So yes, I would do that. I think those are the contexts where we recommend that you have a change management office, just like you have a PMO, you have a CMO. A PMO takes care not just of resourcing, they take care of governance, they take care of benchmarks, they take care of metrics. Most important, they take care of the portfolio management part of it, right? So yes, we definitely think, forget Prosci saying it, the research is saying that organizations are rapidly building change management offices to make change management meaningful to that organization. If you look at project management, every organization does its own thing, right? That's how it's worked. Same logic. So change management will eventually be that organization's adaptation, which is perfectly fine.
We are over time, but we'll take a couple of questions. So this is, as more and more GCCs get functionalized, how does one help the HO appreciate the need for a local manager, given their entity structure, the talent landscape needs local leadership? You can guess who's this. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, Christoph, I'm just taking this one.
No, I think it's just, on one hand, it's managerial issue and it's the balance of power between headquarters and between local. But I think change management can help to pay attention to local needs, to local requirements, to local specificity. And by this, I think we don't as much local touch as it's needed. So change management can help to highlight how much it is needed. What is the impact on local teams? And what is the need for local change management, or what is the need for local leadership in this process? So I believe it can create more visibility on the need, but of course we don't generate decisions. We only can support decision-making process and bring some numbers to the table that can justify the need.
I would also argue, so I agree what Christoph said, right? You practice change management at an individual level, at a functional level. You also do it at an organization level. So this is how do I get that one local leader to be promoted? There are two ways to do it. Either make what they're doing indispensable. They're one of a kind, and no one else can do it in the world. So they have a direct seat at the table, right? Or you make the leader who's running that table find this person useful, right? We're back to sponsorship. You need to find a leader who says this person is important, right? To ask for that across functions, that's going to be impossible, because again, I'm calling out the fact that it is a fragmented world. I cannot say all my leaders of this cadre should get a seat at the table. Not going to happen. Not going to happen, at least in the short term, right? We have been treated as a part of the value stream, and remember, ownership of the vendor and customer, the risk at the organizational level is sitting out there. So it's natural for the organization to take its time to make the flip, but those are the two ways: find what they're doing being indispensable, or find a leader there who is willing to invest in those resources. Proofs of concept, examples. These guys need to be, I'm going to say this for Motik, sorry, Christoph. Once that person gets a seat at the table, please make sure they're successful at it.
Yeah.
It's not funny the number of times we give them a seat at the table and not much gets done. And 12 months quickly pass, and then you're wondering, so what did I get out of that person being at a seat at the table? Leaders need to be good managers too.
So I guess this is a kind of a fundamental question on what is the role of change management in setting up of a GBS or GCC, and how different would be from HR interventions?
Well, I think HR has primary role of providing talents, providing performance management, also providing everything which is connected with hard part of HR. And in fact, you can say if change management is about managing the people side of change, it could have been considered that change management is an HR topic, while in fact it's more business topic and it's more related to what we are implementing. So let's say for me, HR is better in business as usual, in helping also to change, but through HR business as usual. And change management is something that is managing people risks that are going beyond HR topics only. And it would have been perfect if HR could satisfy and could fulfill all the needs of change management, but in practice, it's not like that. And even if we consider where organizations locate change management offices, it looks like HR and PMO are the top two locations for the initial phase, but then change management offices usually and center of excellence usually migrate towards the business. So either stay in PMO or migrate to IT or to business functions, to business units. So even by this, we can observe that HR is not the perfect place, let's say, to grow this function through various reasons. But it means also that change needs to be close to the business. And so it's a bit more than what HR can provide and what HR usually provides. So yes, it would be good if HR is serving this need, but it's much more, and managing the people side of change is much more than just what HR used to do.
Sorry, Suresh, since we anyway hopelessly outside over time, I'm going to add a little bit to what Christoph said. Think of it as a asterisk in addition to, so what is this change management, right, that we're talking about? We are trying to say that for people to take up a new way of doing things, get good at it, and then decide to stick to it is a process. It's not an event. So go live is not an event. Your kickoff is, go live, kickoff, all those are dates in the calendar. But change management is managing that person's change, managing the whole process of change. And then if you zoom out, it's not just with one person. There's very, very, very many different people. They all go through their learning curve. Some of them drop off, some of them don't. So we're trying to maximize the number of people who bought into the solution and keep using it, right? And people change at different speeds. So how do I get as many over to the finishing line as possible? That's what change management is trying to do. By definition, an intervention is an intervention. It's often a reaction and is often time bound. It's just that piece, right? I'm not going into the rabbit hole of HR interventions. It can be a different storyline. As Christoph pointed out, there isn't an HR intervention. They're all people interventions. They're all business interventions. But that said, the bigger picture over here is change management is not that one-stop exercise. It is the whole storyline. Hence, as Christoph pointed out, change management needs to be in the game as early as possible so that they can see the whole thing through. Right? With that, please read what Christoph said. Sudesh, now over to you.
Yeah, and with both of you, I need to have a 90-minute webinar. But apart from that, let's close.
the
With the
topic,
three of
not
us,
us.
Sudeshna, you're part of it.
Okay,
You are managing the time.
okay,
Yeah, we go down
not
with you.
well managed. Okay, now like to close off, I think we're like, just why don't you both round it off with each of you giving one advice to a leader and one advice to a practitioner to get change management execution in GBS top notch.
So
One
maybe let's start, Krish, with
one
leaders.
advice to a leader
Yeah.
in GBS,
Yeah.
one advice for practitioner in GBS as to make your change management execution flawless.
Let me start, Krish, with advice to the leader, and then you will add yours, because my advice would be enable change management to happen on your key projects. Get it equipped with resources, not too many, but still enough, and just support those resources, those people, in helping you to be successful. That's my advice to business leader.
Good one. My version of that would be business leaders get comfortable with being patient and specific about what you want of change management. Both are important. You need to be absurdly specific. It is not an invisible, be happy, kumbaya scenario. You're going to get concrete results, but you got to be specific about what you want out of it, what would be different. But you got to be patient. It is a long play. At a project level, it's going to happen like this: one intervention, one conversation, one good conversation with a good structured conversation can give you huge results. At a project level, you don't have to be patient, but when you're building the capability, you need to think of it being a long play, right? Christoph, I'm going ahead and talking about the practitioner part too, and then handing the mic back to you. For
Yes,
practitioners, my cautionary note is don't make change management sound so complex that they say, wow, this is complex. You are the expert. I need you to do it. I can't do it myself. Don't make it so easy that they wonder, what is this guy doing? This guy is doing exactly the same thing. I was going to be doing it anyway, right? Somewhere between these two extremes is the right place to be in. You have to work with the organization as it gains its skills. But be aware that the organization doesn't understand what change management can bring to the table yet, right? You'll be tempted to talk complexity, but don't. You'll be tempted to say, yes, it's just this. Don't. Pick the middle ground. Christoph, back to you.
I would refer to what you already mentioned. When you are onboarded, either to build capability or to build or to support project, find a sponsor who cares and help the sponsor in very practical, short way and show results. I have a case when we started something with a client in June, mid-June, and they realized they need a lot of change management. It's GBS related, but it was holidays. So what we did, we delivered some significant value during holidays with very limited resources and people availability. But just in late July and August, some things have been done, and then leaders noticed results. And they said, wow, it's possible to do something during that holiday period. So this thing is really working. And now I have more of this work, and now it moves on. So for me, it would be like when you find a sponsor, just do something that works, show the results despite of all the limits, because we were understaffed, of course, but still we found a way to do something smarter, not harder. And
just be careful that the message is not that if I go on leave, magic happens. So long as that's not the
that's perfect summary. Thank you very much, Krish.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you, and thank you to our audience for sticking around beyond time with us. It has been fascinating. And on behalf of Krish and Christoph, a big thank you to all. And on their behalf, I promise you a blog on this article, or a blog or an article on how you can make, GBS execution of change management great in GBS. So wait for that blog from us. And yeah, thank you once again.
Thank you.
Have a lovely
Have a great afternoon, evening, morning.
Have a great drive back home. Bye.
Thanks.